Now that we've established the basic structure and how a society based in natural law would operate under a system of public service administration that has the checks and balances of a verified protector class by testing knowledge and character, and shields every single individual from overreach and oppression with an ironclad personal sovereignty social contract, what do we do with those who will invariably fall through the cracks? Let's face it, human beings are fallible and people make mistakes. Some do so purposely, but many do so out of desperation and ignorance. There will always be crime, but once a system of societal management such as this is implemented, I believe we would see crime plummet as the opportunity to thrive and succeed will be more available for everyone across the entire spectrum of the economy and society. The common law court system would be set up in a way to keep the corporations in check from engaging in monopolistic activities, as well as any activity that purposely violates natural law or the natural balance of ecosystems. But more on that topic will be covered in the next video of this series. The court system would be one of the most important aspects of the new republic, as it would be the referee on all things right and wrong and based in natural law, not subjective opinion or the personal whims of a demagogue. Most cases would be fairly black and white because there is very little gray area when it comes to natural law and objective truth. But the court system would operate in a way we haven't seen anywhere on this planet, perhaps forever. Justice would be truly blind and the facts would be allowed to be heard by educated juries made up of members of the protector class. The corrupted system of just us would be completely foreign under the new PSA structure and oversight. If you're not aware of the corruption inherent in the current for-profit prison industrial complex in America, it is an absolutely abhorrent system of punishment, supposed reform, and repayment of some fictitious debt to a similarly fictitious society, when the only legitimate repayment should be to the actual victim of a crime. Mostly it is a system of warehousing human beings to be used as slave labor, whereby any attempt to reform or educate those incarcerated is virtually absent and is, in essence, a revolving door of criminals who get incarcerated and released only to commit more crime because they have no chance of making it in society once they have fallen into the perpetual grasp of this type of cycle. There are many reasons that people fall into the trap of the criminal lifestyle, and it is primarily due to the failures of the form of government we have currently. The cronyism and corruption endemic in today's legacy institutions is what allows for poor education and the welfare state to thrive in disenfranchised communities, and decades of the supposed war on poverty have done absolutely nothing to solve the problems while lining the pockets of the pond scum we call legislators and representatives. It is one disgusting cycle of pandering and paybacks after another, city by city, in what is supposed to be the wealthiest nation and one of opportunity for all. It still can be, but the entire system needs a reimagining and redesign. That is the entire purpose of the Freedom Project 2020 and the introduction of a completely new system of societal management. Part of this reimagination is how to compassionately deal with those who violate natural law and trespass against others. The common law court system alone is a great leap forward in the management of crime, as everyone would be operating under a social contract that clearly delineates and defines their full spectrum of human rights, but also their full range of responsibilities. So doing harm against others would be fully understood as such before any crime is committed. Understanding is key in anything to making things work as they should, and there is not a single human being alive who knows or understands the laws, statutes, or codes of their confusing legal system, and it's designed, again, to be that way as part of the enslavement grid set up by the illegitimate ruling classes over the generations. So, the ultimate aim of a common law system of justice and reform is twofold. First and foremost, the purpose is to make whole the person or business entity that has been harmed. By making whole, it means to create a method for compensating any loss suffered by the commission of a crime, and the only one responsible for bearing that cost will be the individual, group, or entity that committed that crime. Under such a system of justice and reform, there will be no digging into the pockets of the public to satisfy judgments for crimes committed against the state. Every individual will be held personally responsible for their indiscretions against others. There will be no tax base for which to pay for crimes, and as it should be, individuals should be held personally responsible for their actions. Now, there will be a couple of ways in which a victim will be made whole. First, if the crime or trespass is solely financial, wages can be garnished by the common law court system and payments made from the aggressor to the victim until the decided penalty or loss is met in full. This would allow the individual who committed the crime to learn their lesson while being able to continue living their life in freedom. If a crime is committed by someone without the means to repay the penalty, then a system would be necessary for them to enter a period of incarceration whereby they would be able to earn a way to repay the victim as well as to learn the necessary language and scientific arts necessary to live peacefully in society at large. So, education would be a very important part of the incarceration process. As I just proposed, while incarcerated, everyone would be able to earn a living wage by which they would also have to pay rent on their incarceration as well. This would teach financial responsibility as well as remove the burden from the public via taxation to pay for the maintenance of these reform systems. They would be self-sustaining and corporations would be able to use labor from these systems, but at a fair living wage, not the slave labor wages they currently use these people for in the prison industrial complex. I think you should begin to see how a system such as this solves an entire myriad of societal problems we deal with in today's world. Instead of using the system as a way to punish and warehouse people like animals, they would be treated with a certain level of dignity and an opportunity to better themselves while repaying their debts, not to society or the coffers of the state, so that the real criminals in society are able to enrich themselves as they currently do. The days of fines paid to the state would be over, and only those who suffer loss will be compensated. And once they are fully compensated, the person who committed the crime would be allowed to leave the place of incarceration at their will. They could stay on until they feel they have saved up enough wealth to seamlessly reintegrate into society, or they could take what they have and leave as soon as their debt has been paid. It would be a system designed to truly reform and create fully functional members of society, not turn out hardened criminals on the masses because a certain arbitrary frame of time had been satisfied, only to commit more crimes and create more victims. The absurdity of the system we currently have should be glaringly apparent to everyone by now, and how a reform system of true justice such as this would solve an incredible amount of society's problems alone. This is the type of system that has already been implemented in Norway with overwhelmingly positive results. So, that would create a system where financial crimes are satisfied and victims made whole through an effective common law court system and the compensation, incarceration, reform system designed to help everyone involved from criminal to victim and everyone in the system of reform. It is a win-win situation all the way around and abides by natural law. But what about violent crime? What would that system look like? How would it differ, and victim compensation be handled? That is a little more difficult, but again, we have to go to natural law to find out what is fair and how to bring everything back into balance, or as close to balance as possible. Violent crime is devastating to not only the victim, but many with whom they are related as well. Violent crime is committed pretty much by people with severe personality and psychological problems, and some people may not be able to be rehabilitated. There is always that certain percentage of the population that has been scientifically shown to have sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies. So, what could be done with those people once they no longer had a refuge in government to hide behind for committing their crimes? Yes, the current form of government is a magnet to the corruptible and incorrigible in society. Under the PSA type of system, there would be no place for these people to get away with their crimes against humanity with impunity. So, it's another win-win situation for everyone in polite society, wouldn't you say? Back to violent crime, however. Who would say what the penalty is for such crimes? an arbitrary group of people who don't fully know the damage done and pain of the victim? Should we continue to set arbitrary timeframes and financial penalties to be paid to the government coffers? Or should we perhaps let the victims of violent crime decide the penalty of their aggressors to be paid? Would that help to reduce crime? After all, many criminals today weigh the penalty phase of their crimes to decide whether it is worth the risk. And if they know they can be released in a reasonable amount of time, they will bear the risk of getting caught. This only increases crime and again is an abhorrent system that needs to be completely abolished. Because under a system in which the aggressor or criminal doesn't know what their penalty or how forgiving or vengeful the victim might be, they might be more adverse to committing such violence against one another. I can see the only fair way to deal with violent criminals is to allow their victims to set the penalty, and as such, the criminal would end up becoming indebted to their victim until such a time comes that the criminal can prove to their victim their sincere condolences and their commitment to learning and becoming a productive member of society. It would literally be up to the mercy of the victim to decide if the violent criminal ever sees the light of freedom ever again. That seems infinitely more fair to all parties involved than the state having a say in the time frame of someone's incarceration and the ultimate release back into society, whether the victim wants them to be released or not. While incarcerated for violent crimes, the same method would be in place for reform, and education would be of utmost priority. They would also be allowed to earn a living wage, but a larger percentage would be garnished and paid to the victim as long as the victim felt it necessary to have the person remain incarcerated. Could this type of system be abused? I suppose it could, but again, it would also create a society in which people would think twice before committing a violent crime, because they could ultimately be putting the rest of their lives in the hands of those who they have chosen to violently assault. Obviously, details and logistics would need to be worked out in a system such as this, but it is one that focuses on reform and reducing overall crime in society by allowing the laws of nature and common sense to prevail. Anything not aligned with a model in which all parties benefit is out of alignment with natural law and must be tweaked to bring everything into balance. That is the only fair way in which to operate anything in society, and this system of justice and reform is the most civil and sensible ever devised. It can and will work better than anything we have ever seen if given a chance under a new system of societal management.